Hello, today is day 17 of doing 100 pull-ups every single day to raise money for Alzheimer's disease. I have a donation link in my description, so if you want to donate, just visit that link. Any size donation is greatly appreciated. All donations go straight to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. The Alzheimer's Society is also in the United States, but they're an organization that does research for Alzheimer's as well as provide care for patients with the disease. So it's for a really good cause. Consider it. If you can donate, please share the video or the link to someone who can donate. And yeah, let's start these pull-ups. So as always, I will do 100 pull-ups, and as I'm doing the pull-ups, I will provide a fact about Alzheimer's as well as a prevention method because I believe that education is very important, especially with disease and preventing disease. The more you know, the better you can protect yourself. So, alright. I will be doing 7 pull ups on the minute today. And, yeah, let's start. Alright, so the fact of the day today is the burden and the stress that caregivers face when taking care of someone with Alzheimer's. So, compared, if we compare caregivers who take care of dementia patients versus caregivers that take care of non-dementia patients, um, there's substantially more emotional, financial, and physical difficulties for caregivers that take care of dementia patients or Alzheimer's patients. 59% of family caregivers of people with Alzheimer's or other dementias rated the emotional stress of caregiving as high or very high. All right, so I've done 7, going for 14. Also, spousal dementia caregivers are more likely than non-spousal dementia caregivers to experience increased burden over time. This increased burden also occurs when the person with dementia develops behavioral changes and decreased functional abilities. So, wait, let me. So, caregivers who are married to the person that needs care. So, let's say the wife has Alzheimer's and the husband is taking care of her. They go through more emotional burden than caregivers who aren't married. And that makes sense. Uh, Hold up, let me pull up. So, done 14, going for 21. And the reason why that makes sense, and they kind of alluded to it in what I just said, is when there are behavioral changes or decline in functional abilities, it's more frustrating because you're almost losing the person that you you married before they even die, you know? So if they start behaving differently, it's tough on them because they don't even recognize the person that they once loved, or they still love them, but you know what I mean. Same thing with functional ability. So if the person can't walk anymore, well, first of all, it's a lot harder to take care of them, and they're just not the same anymore. So it makes sense that it's a lot harder on the spouses than a caregiver who is not married to the patient. So I've done 21, going for 28. next, moving on, many people with dementia have co-occurring chronic conditions such as hypertension or arthritis, which may complicate caregiving. So pretty much what they're saying is there's a lot of people with Alzheimer's or dementia that have other issues. Like here they said arthritis or hypertension. And obviously the more issues someone has, the harder it is to take care of them. So then 28, going for 35. For example, a national study found that caregivers of people with dementia who had a diagnosis of diabetes or osteoporosis were 2.6 and 2.3 times more likely, respectively, to report emotional difficulties with care compared with caregivers of people with dementia who did not have co-occurring conditions. So it goes back to the fact that the more issues a person has, it's just harder to take care of them. And it puts a stronger emotional burden or stress on the caregiver because they just have to worry about more things. All right, so I've done 35, going for 42. So the reason why I chose this fact today is to make people understand that, and I've talked about this before, but Alzheimer's isn't just uh, something that affects the person; it affects everyone around them, and it's known as one of the for caregivers one of the diseases that poses the most stress and emotional burden on them. So it's hard for families to deal with that, and yeah. All right, 42, going for 49. All right, moving on to the prevention method of the day. It's about mindfulness and stress reduction in Alzheimer's prevention. So, I've spoken about this before, but high levels of cortisol is associated with Alzheimer's. And cortisol is known as the stress hormone. So, cortisol is good in certain quantities. Cortisol in the morning when you wake up is what gives you energy throughout the day. But if your body is just always producing cortisol all the time because you're always stressed out, it's not good for your body, it's not good for your brain, and it could lead to Alzheimer's. All right, I've done 47 or 49, going for 56. So, here are a couple facts about about mindfulness and stress reduction. So, it decreases or chronic stress increases Alzheimer's risk. So I've talked about this before. Prolonged stress raises cortisol, which damages the hippocampus and impairs memory. Mindfulness lowers cortisol and improves brain health. So meditation and breathing techniques reduce the stress hormone levels. So if you have issues with stress at work or just life in general, consider meditating or any breathing techniques. There's a bunch online that you can look up, and it makes a big difference. All right, so I've done 56, going for 63. So, mindfulness increases gray matter in key brain areas. So, regular practice of mindfulness, where was I? Is linked to structural brain changes in areas for memory and emotional regulation. So, again, it's healthy for your brain because it lowers your cortisol levels and probably other things that I don't know of, but it's just healthy. So, if you live a stressful lifestyle, consider it. All right, so I've done 70, going for 77. Mindfulness also improves functional connectivity in the brain, so it enhances the default mode network, often impaired in early Alzheimer's. That's interesting. It also boosts brain derived neurotrophic factor, so BDNF, and BDNF supports neuron survival and plasticity, vital for memory function. This is cool. I never even knew that. Okay, so I've done 70, going for 77. Next, it also reduces inflammation and supports immune health. So chronic inflammation is linked to cognitive decline. Mindfulness reduces pro-inflammatory markers. Also, mindfulness improves quality of sleep. And I've talked about this many times. Quality of sleep is super important for preventing Alzheimer's. And lastly, it may slow cognitive aging. Older adults practicing mindfulness showed better executive functions and attention. So, I think it's pretty clear. Mindfulness, meditation, all that stuff is extremely important because it helps you reduce your stress, especially if you're living a stressful lifestyle. So, done 77, going for 84. Now, I know I've kind of listed all different things that mindfulness and stress reduction is good for and why it prevents Alzheimer's, but I didn't really touch on how to be mindful and how to reduce your stress. And honestly, for me personally, it's probably something I struggle with the most, stress regulation, because I can get in my head a lot. But I find the best, actually, let me do my pull-ups first. So, done 84, or yeah, going for 91. So I find for me the best way to relieve stress is to one, only focus on things that I have control over. And that's a lot easier said than done because it can be very frustrating to worry about something that you don't have control over. But realistically, you have no control over it. So who cares? You know? That's the type of mentality you gotta have. It's gonna, whatever happens, happens. You can't control it, you're just gonna have to deal with it. The things that you can control, though, is how you behave to a situation, how you handle an issue if it arises. And this, I find, helps me, anyways, kind of unclutter my brain, and it helps me focus on the stuff that is actually important, which helps reduce stress for me, anyways. All right, so I've done 91, got 9 more to go. count to 100. One for good luck. There you go. So that's all the posts for today. To touch on what I was talking about earlier too, I find a good way to reduce stress is exercise, and it's a win-win because you stay physically fit. It pushes healthier habits onto you. Pretty much, if you're exercising a lot, it forces you to eat better because if you don't eat healthy, you're not gonna have enough energy to work out, and working out often helps people de-stress, helps people stay mindful. And I think people don't realize this, but especially if you're doing something really hard, you don't really think about your problems. And some people might think, oh, that's because you're doing an exercise, but who cares? You're not thinking about any of your problems. You're just living in the present. I guarantee you that if anyone does a super hard workout, like to the point where your brain is screaming at you to stop because it hurts so bad, you're not going to be thinking about your problems. And because you're living in the moment almost. It's kind of a weird way to think about it, but to me, I find it helps. Also, after you do exercise, your body is flooded with what's it called? Endorphins, which is, I think, the happy or like the feel good hormone. I don't know if I'm confusing that with dopamine, but I know it releases endorphins, which then that's the opposite of stress. So if you have a hard time with the meditation part, I mean, meditate. Even if you exercise, you should meditate. Meditation is really good, and that's something that I've been trying to do because it does help you really be in, be in the moment. Like, and when I say be in the moment, you don't have any other thoughts. I guess when you're exercising, you're kind of thinking about, oh, this hurts so bad, blah blah blah. But anyway, when you meditate, your head is literally just empty. You're just focusing on breathing, and that's it. That's really good for you. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be 5 minutes a day. That's all you really need. But anyways, what I was saying is, if you don't like meditation or you don't want to do it, I don't know why, but exercise is a good way because it just clears your mind of everything because you're just focused on whatever you pull up or running or I don't know. So yeah, I know I just rambled a lot, but I think it's really important, and I think the reason why stress is really prevalent in today's world is because less and less people are physically active and we're always on our phones, which is like a stress ball in your hand. So you gotta tip the scales a little bit here because right now, let's say this is stress and this is mindfulness. A lot of people are like this. We gotta even it out or even bring it the other way. So, anyways, that's all the pull-ups for today. Please donate to the donation link in my bio. All donations go straight to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. Um, yeah, and even if you're American and you're donating to the Canadian Society, it's still going to a good cause. It's still helping those in America or anywhere in the world, honestly, because this money is mostly going towards research. And the more research that gets done, the more we learn and the more we can help treat, cure, prevent. So overall, it's just a good thing to do. So please consider it. If you can't donate, share the link to someone who can. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for another 100 pull ups. Let's get it. Bye.